Welcome to the Mick, a Mook, and a Mike. Hosted by four-time Emmy-nominated producer Frank Mace and retired New York City firefighter, 9/11 first responder, and Vietnam vet, Billy O'Connor.
Today's guests, co-founders of the Big Comedy Network, Scott Henry and Catherine Kamei.
My brother
Frankie, how you doing, pal? Welcome back.
Thank you. Our guest today is Catherine Kamei and Scott Henry, co-founders of Big Comedy Network and executive producers of Some Sex Comedy, I guess.
Some Sex Comedy. It's doing well.
It's doing well on Amazon Prime, but they'll tell us all about it as we get into it.
Tell us about it. Tell me about your trip. Tell me you're back in the ZI, as we used to call it in Vietnam.
We're back
the zone of the internal.
We're back in the
USA.
We're back in the USA. We went to Barcelona for 3 or 4 days. We spent almost a week in the south of France, where, the topless beaches.
Did you get the banana hammock? I know you were looking for one. Come on, you were flashing that.
I was looking for one, but I couldn't find one big enough.
You dream a lot in the south of France, I guess. They do a lot of dreaming.
We do a lot of dreaming. Then I went to. We finished up at outside London at the resort called the Grove. We played golf on Saturday.
Who won?
We played golf on Saturday. It was a great course. They played a pro golf tournament tour championship there in 2006. I think Tiger Woods won by a couple of strokes. We went to London the second day, and third day we went to tour the Harry Potter set. The Harry Potter museum was wonderful, just terrific. I really enjoyed Barcelona though the best. Great people, wide streets, not a lot of congestion in the buildings. I think they were all like 10 stories high, with the biggest, tallest buildings. So
wide streets, you say, Boston?
Yeah, I'm so shocked by that too.
Wide streets.
Yeah.
It makes me. I would think it's like an old town. Like I get.
Well, there were two lanes on one side coming one way, 2 lanes on the other side coming one way, and a big median in the middle where you could walk. It was really terrific city planning.
Interesting. The things that he's into.
Well, that's cool. I mean, that's like
and a lot of sidewalk cafes, for women watching.
Meatloaf and
Oh, I didn't have any meatloaf there. I ate a lot of
seafood. You go to
seafood.
Barcelona and eat meatloaf. Everybody says eat meatloaf when you go to Barcelona. It's like it's in the books.
Well, someone who's not meatloaf is Joe West. Why don't we bring Joe on? How's that segue, Joe? You like that?
No, that was good. Now I'm being compared to Meatloaf.
Can you sing Paradise by the Dashboard Light? Do you know that song?
That's interesting that you said there's a lot of sidewalk kind of cafes. You said,
yeah,
because I think that's Rita's favorite. She likes to go to the locally owned little restaurants and taverns. She said I took her to an Outback down here in Claremont, Florida. It's the first Outback she'd ever been to. Now, I mean, of course, growing up in St. Louis, she went to all those little pubs and places. Of course, she lived on the hill up there where Garagiola and Yogi Berra and all of them were from. But I thought it was interesting. She was amazed about all these different chains and kind of things. And I said, "Well, you've been to McDonald's." She said, "That's not the same thing." But it's interesting. You go to the country like that, and all these mom and pop stores. That's cute as it can be. I bet that was a lot of fun.
That was a lot of fun. You ought to take Rita to Europe next, Joe.
Well, that's a good idea. I'd like to do that.
You're going to Ireland, aren't you, Joe?
Yeah, she wants to go to Ireland. She keeps telling me she wants to go to Ireland. She keeps saying, "Well, we got to play golf there." And I said, "Why would we want to play golf? I'd like to, explore all the pubs there."
Yeah,
you can do both at St. Andrews, and I know that's not Scotland, but I think they have a few pubs in Ireland. They got a few pubs in Ireland.
They got some classy golf courses in Ireland. The old ones, Ballybunions and old.
Yeah, and in your hometown of Cork.
Cork has, they have Kinsale.
Kinsale.
The old head of Kinsale. Yeah, that's a tough course. But I mean, yeah, but you're right. The pubs, the thing in Ireland, and everybody says this that goes to Ireland. And my ex-wife was Italian, and it was Antonucci, I took Hunt Island, and everybody says the same thing. It's the people. It's the people. They make you feel comfortable. They love Yanks. They make you feel at home. They can't do enough for you. You know,
It's true.
that's a big deal in Ireland.
And you can get Guinness too.
And you can get Guinness, and Guinness flows like mother's milk.
You know, I was surprising. I had a couple of Guinnesses in London, and it wasn't as good as the Guinness at Pebble Beach. I think it was a little bit bitter, and it wasn't quite as smooth as the Guinness I got in Pebble on draft. As the draft,
Was it cold?
it was cold.
It was cold.
As the Guinness I get at Pebble Beach. I think maybe Ireland would be a different story.
Yeah, well, in Ireland, it flows. You know, the deal with Guinness, the Irish people, the workers, it was a workers' drink initially. Porter, they call it porter. Like they say, give me a pint of plain porter, not stout, porter. And the reason they call it that is because the English, when they brewed the beer in Ireland, they used to take the barrels of beer out and they'd leave the bottom where it had fermented too much or whatever, it was dark. And they left it for the porters, the guys that used to take the beer onto the boats.
Right.
So they called it porter, just gave it to them for nothing. And eventually Guinness became the national drink of Ireland.
No.
That's a little bit of history.
A little bit of history for sure.
Can you imagine the ancient mariner giving us that kind of history?
Hey Joe, we're in the middle of the playoffs now because this will air in October. Why don't you tell me about your point of view on the strike zone as shown by the networks? Because you were telling me the strike zone that the networks put up is different than what you guys are graded on at the Major League Baseball offices.
Yeah, each network has their own little box they put up there, and
so that's it's not a standard box.
No, and it's not a standard box because the same little box they put up there for Altuve is the same one they put up there for Aaron Judge. So that's not an accurate depiction of what it's supposed to be anyway. But the point is, you're guessing where the pitch is with one linear box that they put on TV, and that's not what it is because the strike zone is three-dimensional. It's over a pentagon, and it can hit any part of the zone from the hollow of the knees to a point about 6 inches above the belt line. Now, when you're coaching umpires and teaching umpires the strike zone, you have to tell them that a hitter cannot hit the ball above his hands. Now, what that means, if you take your elbows and put it 90 degrees and you put the bat in your hands, a hitter cannot hit the ball above the top of his hands. So that has to be the top of the strike zone. So no graphic on television is going to give you that, idea of what it is. And that's another thing, because the strike zone is subjective to each different umpire. The players need to learn what the umpire strike zone is, even though we're trying to all be the same way. And since they put in the measuring of the strike zone, the umpires have consistently gotten better. And I can remember the last year I worked, we didn't have a single umpire. Even our worst graded umpires were under who worked home plate, scored above or below 95%. Now, the funny thing about that is that machine that graded the umpires is different from what you see on TV. And that machine that grades umpires missed about 7% of the pitches it was grading the umpires on. So if we had the umpires that aren't missing 5% and the machine's missing 7%, well, which do you want? So,
Yeah.
And it's crazy because the scrutiny on the umpires today is much more than it's ever been. And they're saying, oh, this umpire, he scored 88. He scored 87. Well, we haven't had an umpire score under 93 in about 3 years. So they can say what they want to, and they can put all these graphics up that these college kids are putting up, but they're not accurate. And by the way, they take the best umpires to work these playoff games. They don't put umpires in there that they don't think are going to be successful. So, but you're right. Each I mean, they say that TBS has the worst strike zone of all of them, meaning the box that they put up is not accurate. And I remember watching a game last year where I think the Cardinals were playing the Mets, and in one feed they showed the ball was inside the box for the Cardinals and it was outside the box for the Mets. So two different networks had two different boxes, and that's not fair to what's going on. Everybody needs to use the same little box. So,
well, how can well, they should use the box that Major League Baseball uses, correct?
that's exactly right.
And
Well, they don't.
does Major League Baseball adjust for Altuve and then adjust for Judge?
Yes,
Wow.
yes, they do. So, I mean that's a big difference right there. I mean, Aaron Judge, what is he, 6'7", and Altuve's 5'7".
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Stretching it, he's 5'7". Stretching it is 5'7". That's interesting.
Did you say the strike zone was from the knees to 6 inches above your belt, around 6 inches above the belt?
Yes, just above the belt.
Oh.
And there again, one of the great teaching tools that you can give an umpire is if a guy takes a half swing at a ball, meaning he starts a swing and stops it. If the ball comes under the bat, it can't be high. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
If he
sure.
starts the bat, if he starts to swing the bat and he doesn't swing and the ball comes in under the bat, that ball can't be high. He's given you a perfect example of where the top of that strike zone is.
Wow.
Wow.
That's a good insight.
Yeah.
That's-
I got a question for you, Joe. Watching baseball now, does it give you the same kick it did when you were a kid? I mean, or are you like the kid who worked in the ice cream store and just fed up of it? I mean, do you still have the same zeal for it that you had, when you?
Well, I was really lucky. My grandfather was a minor league player for the Orioles, and he used to sit down TV set with me to watch the games. And when I was just a little kid, I used to say, "Grandpa, these Yankees are the stupidest team in the world." And he'd say, "Why do you say that?" I'd say, "Because they don't let Mickey Mantle bat every inning." Now, of course, I was just a little kid. I didn't know there was a lineup that you had to use. And I said, "The Yankees got to be the stupidest team in the world." And he used to laugh. He thought that was the funniest thing ever. And I grew up watching guys like Mickey Mantle and Hank Aaron and Willie Mays. And I don't think I ever saw a more exciting player than Willie Mays. And it was kind of funny. I didn't recognize the career that a guy like Stan Musial had until I got into baseball. And you realize that there's a lot of good things that go on in baseball that no one ever sees. Like the funny thing about Mike Shannon used to say that Stan Musial could use the same bat all year because he hit every ball in the same spot on the bat. And he said, "You go pick up my bat, it's got marks all over it because I hit the ball however I could, but he'd hit every pitch on the same spot on the bat." Now, that's a talent in itself.
Well, didn't Stan have, and I'm just guessing, but out of his 3,600 career hits, weren't they divided equally from home and on the road? I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think.
They were divided equally. Left-handed pitching, right-handed pitching, the same batting average.
Yeah.
Wow.
Day games, night games, same batting average.
Home and away.
Yeah.
Home and away.
I
Same
mean,
batting.
if you divide 3,600 in half, he had, 50% were.
1,800 each spot.
Yep. 18.
Yep.
Thank you for helping me with that math.
Put a dollar sign in front of it, Frank. You remember it.
And the thing about Stan Musial is, Stan Musial is one of those guys that sort of history has assigned to I don't want to say a secondary spot, but he was every bit the hitter that Ted Williams was, and he was a pitcher too. I mean, he hit 338 compared to Ted's 342 or something like that. I mean, he was a great player.
Yeah, and the funny thing, he doesn't get any credit because he played in what was considered a small market, or actually at the time he played, it was the West Coast market, because that was the furthest west of Major League Baseball was St. Louis, because the Dodgers were still playing in Brooklyn and the Giants were still in the Bronx. So they were the furthest team west, so they didn't get near the publicity that the New York and the Boston area got. And it's tough to compare guys like Stan Musial to say Ted Williams. If Ted Williams had played in Yankee Stadium, he might have hit 700 home runs. And of course, if Joe DiMaggio had played at Fenway Park, he might have batted 500. So,
but do you still look at the game the same way? I mean, do you say, there's a ball game on tonight, I got to see this game? Do you have that zest for the game still after all these years?
No, you know what I think it is because I worked in it, and I love being a part of the history of it. I love seeing it live. I have a hard time sitting down and watching a game. But and when I was a little kid, I thought guys like Willie Mays and Hank Aaron and those guys were the best I'd ever see. And I'm not so sure that they weren't. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I remember meeting Richie Ashburn in Philadelphia. This is a great baseball player. He's eventually got in the Hall of Fame. But I couldn't figure out with his statistics how it took him so long. Well, they were comparing him at the same time with Willie Mays and Hank Aaron and Mickey Mantle and Roberto Clemente. And Richie Ashburn was not anywhere near that talent.
And Duke Snider.
And Duke Snider. Don't let me leave him out. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to leave Duke out. But the point being, they were a step above these other players. And it's like the closest thing we have to them recently is maybe Ken Griffey Jr. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
But we don't have anybody in that category today. The player today is bigger, faster, stronger, but there are no Willie Mayses. And that's an amazing thing. With the pitching, as diluted as it has become because they have more teams, we still don't have anybody hitting close to 400. And Ted Williams hit 400. And they tried to sit him down the last day of the season, and he refused to sit down. I think he went 4 for 6 or something crazy.
6 for 8.
What's that?
6 for 8 on the last day in the doubleheader. Well, Joe, thank you for being a part of the show. It's always a delight to have you. What'd you shoot today, by the way?
Well, I shot 90 and I missed about 8 putts that I should have made. So I'm really upset with myself. I'm gonna go back to the putting green after I leave you guys and practice a little bit. But Rita's playing in a tournament in Bradenton with the Florida Women's Association, and I haven't heard what her score is today, but I'm going to check on her and I'll get back with you guys. But it's great to see you.
Thanks. All right, Joe. Thanks, pal. Wish Rita now you're going to Pebble Beach in the week after Thanksgiving, right?
Yes.
I don't know what's going to happen with the strike. It'll probably be over then, but I'm going to try to make it up there at least for the weekend to see you and Rita.
Okay.
All right.
All right. I look forward to seeing you.
Be well.
All right.
Take care.
So that was a pretty good interview again. He's always fun.
Joe's fun. You know what it is? He you could just see he loves life. He's got a big smile on his face all the time. He's the kind of guy impossible to piss him off.
Yeah.
You would think.
But he's pissed off a few people in his time.
That's a different ballgame.
But, I look at the response we get to Joe on the internet, and it's probably 4 in favor, 1 against.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's just a terrific guy, and I wish him nothing but the best.
Oh, yeah. And again, his occupation breeds controversy. You know what I mean? That's what he does. I mean, you don't agree with the call?
Yeah, and he sticks up for himself.
Yeah.
So that's what really
80%'s a pretty good ratio.
Pretty good ratio. So, Derek, my friend, can you bring on the lovely Catherine and Scott Henry?
I surely can.
There they are. I expected you to come on holding your coffee mugs up.
Okay.
Big Comedy Network. That's a big old mug for the Big Comedy Network.
How you guys doing? How you been?
Great. How about you?
We've been doing really well, but we know how we've been doing. We want to hear about you. Tell us about the Big Comedy Network.
Well, Frank, we used to do something that was, I guess it was an app, right? And you want to mention that app?
Sure. Clubhouse.
Clubhouse app. And then we started a community on there, and we had hours and hours of programming, and the only comedy network on that app that was doing their own shows. We had something called Impersonation Nation, and it was some of the best impressionists in the business. They had their show. We had all kinds of different programming. We had an Indian guy that lived in India. He was a ER doctor, and he would have other ER doctors on, and they would talk about funny stories in the ER. Well, after we decided to leave that app and start this network, we wanted to help people that, when I started doing comedy, guys, you just had to be funny. You know what I mean? You just had to be funny. Now you got to be a marketer, you got to be an editor, you got to be a videographer, you got to be everything. And so there's a lot of funny people that don't do that and won't do that. So we're trying to help those people. Over 80% of our products, as well as, or our talent, as well as the people that work with us, are either female, LGBTQ, or people of color. And so we started it with a family business in mind, and that's what we're running now. So we take a lot of pride in the why of our company, and it's to help and to bring people to the forefront that wouldn't normally be able to have that opportunity. I'm just saying, middle-aged white guys kind of dominate comedy. I'm just saying.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more with you, Scott. I think it's a wonderful thing you're doing. I mean, it seems like to me, I did comedy for about 8-9 years, stand-up, and I started really late. And I stopped actually when COVID came around. I'm 75. I said, what am I going to do? Be the darling in the nursing homes? You know what I mean? Like, I'm not getting involved in a COVID situation. Yeah, I mean, but there's definitely two different talents. You could be funny and not let people know you're funny. You got to figure out a way to let people know that you're funny, and you got to be unabashed, with the ego, really, to let people say, hey, come see me, I'm here. And the talent of getting people to come see you is a totally different talent. So you're doing a great service. Yeah. I mean, I think.
Especially in this day and age of social media, I mean, that's not a skill everybody has. It doesn't come naturally to people. They may not have that knowledge, and it has become so important in getting comedy work that you have a big following on social media. And that's really, it's really a challenge for comedians that's not their strength. So we're trying to help them get back to doing what they do and being creative and taking some of that load off of their plates.
Yeah, because the time that is spent doing all of that stuff is time you're not being creative. Also, they have something great. The comedy business has changed so much because in the comedy clubs, they're all 400-seat venues now.
Right.
So you have to be able to have 500,000 on up followers. You got to be able to fill that room. And the problem is these guys and gals and what have yous are all bringing their own opening and middle acts. So there's nowhere for these young comics to develop until we went to something last night, which was pretty cool. Why don't you tell them, honey?
There's this, obviously we're in the indie comedy world. We love up-and-coming comics. We love opportunities for comedians that are off the beaten path. But there's this wonderful comedy brand, and it's in over 100 cities now, called Don't Tell Comedy. And if it's in your city, you should definitely check it out. It is such an interesting concept. You basically buy your ticket. You don't know what the venue is or who the lineup is until that day. They send you where to go. For that day, you show up and you get who you get. And they're great comedians. And we've gone a couple times, and just awesome, interesting people that you just wouldn't see in a club these days because they don't have that. They're not at that point in their career.
Yeah.
Now we say up-and-coming comics, and we're talking about comics that have often 8 to 10 years. So they're very good.
Right.
They're just still not at the level where you're going to see them in a big club.
How do you feel about that with like you said, the 400-seat venues, 600-seat venues, to fill it up? I mean, obviously they're in business to make money. The business of comedy is money. I mean, like any other business. But how do you feel about that? Like you get these YouTube comics, they're not really that funny, but they have this big following, and they got more clout than they're going to fill up the room, whereas a guy who's hilarious won't. So
there's a fantastic, he was a club owner, and I'm sure you know who he is, Frank. His name's Chris DePetta. He's managed some of the biggest acts, and he gave me my break as well. And he said he has a club in Atlanta still, And he said, yeah, I don't want to book these YouTubers. He goes, but I got to turn the lights on in the building. And so what he started doing, what a lot of these club owners are doing, is they go, all right, we'll bring you a little YouTube ass in here, but we're going to have to book a headliner with you that can make people laugh, because they're not going to walk out of my club and go, I'm not going there anymore to see these douchebags. And not that they're douchebags. I'm just saying, if you were to go to a club,
They drink vinegar and water, but that doesn't really make them a douchebag. They just like it on the rocks. I got it.
I don't, again, so I don't really like the 400-seat venue thing, because it takes away from what the charm was in stand-up comedies, watching younger people come up, and you just can't do that now. But again, there's a rebound with everything, and this Don't Tell comedy is really, really cool, man. And I really like a lot of these young comics. We just came back from the Asheville Comedy Festival, and I was re-inspired. I always try to get inspired because I'm 34 years in the business. You got to find something to get your ass out of bed every day, right? And, you know, anyway.
HR, calling HR.
By my subordinate.
Yeah.
Thank
This
you.
is our role playing right here, Frank.
Yeah, sure. Somehow I think not.
But yeah, it's nice to see that now. And I watch these young comics, and there's some really sharp, funny young comics that we just signed one of them for a podcast, and it's great. I don't know how much time they can do in a club. You know, I don't know if they can go, but I know that what they're doing and what a lot of these young comics that we saw were very clever, very clever.
Hey, you know.
And
oh, I'm sorry, Scott. Go ahead.
no, that's it.
I saw something in the New York Times recently, and I can't remember the guy's name, but he's been accused of lying or exaggerating in his comedy bits.
Awful.
Yeah, I mean,
What do you think about that? I mean, Jerry Seinfeld said he didn't experience anything he talked about. He's made it all up.
yeah.
But how do you feel about lying or exaggerating in your comedy bits?
I wouldn't be employed.
You mean?
My comedy is so about my life, but I don't have a problem with that at all, because you think of funny scenarios, and then you go up there and you can lie, and there's no repercussions. You're just trying to get laughs and trying to be creative with whatever you happen to see. So
In New York, we call that talking. You lie, you exaggerate, you talk.
I think people need to understand that it's storytelling. So you shouldn't ever assume that anything that's being said, don't take it too literally.
So why don't you tell us a little about how you got into this? Catherine, you go first, and then Scott.
Well, Scott was talking a bit about what happened on Clubhouse. So just to give you some more context, during the shutdown, Scott didn't work for about a year and a half, and was going stir crazy looking for a creative outlet. And this app, which was really popular at the time, audio only social app called Clubhouse, was sort of cool and emerging, and we thought that there'd be an interesting opportunity there. And what we decided to do is just gather up some comedian friends, and we started doing it 3 nights a week. We'd just sit around and tell stories, wrote stories, and we thought it would be a really cool way for people to sit in, like having a green room experience, sitting around with the comedians and talking shop and hearing about their old road stories. And it got very popular. We ended up building a 20,000 person community now out of that. We had a bunch of other shows like Scott talked about that started doing shows with us in our community. And this is all just for love of the game. There's no money. We were doing about 50 hours of content a week, us, but also other creators, just for fun, just for love of the game, and just to have a creative way to all be together. And a lot of amazing things happened. We heard people that had never done stand-up comedy come on and do comedy. Same thing that Scott's talking about, younger comedians that maybe couldn't get stage time, but Clubhouse sort of leveled the playing field, and they were able to get up and do time, and they were fantastic. And we just had a lot of really cool experiences, and that's how Big Comedy Network started, because we realized that between our backgrounds, I have 25 years in corporate strategy and who's been doing comedy for 34 years, that first of all, we had a great skill set to work together in building this community. And people started asking us, saying, we like what you've built. Can we do something with this? Can we take this idea that we've had here where we're all collectively building something together and make something out of it? That's how Big Company Network was born.
Yeah. And we have, I know a lot of people are like, oh, you got a podcast, but they're really if you were to think about how many radio shows there were at one time in this country, there's really not that many podcasts that I think everybody thinks everybody is a podcast, but it's not the truth. And that doesn't mean that some aren't better than others. But what we wanted to do is we have more of a boutique company. We are not trying to do volume. We're trying to do stuff that's very specific. We have one called Childlike at Best, and it's a guy named Mikey Valdez, who's a human cartoon. And you go on and you talk about childhood. It's all reminiscing about things, and talk about your cereal that you used to eat and the cartoons you watch, and that's very specific. We have another one called Bat Signal, which is all about like movies, superheroes, and these two guys, they're smoking blunts on their show, and they're just one of the dudes out of his fucking gourd. I don't know if I could curse, but
yeah. First Amendment, go whatever you want.
You never met Billy O'Connor?
Go ahead. First Amendment guys all the way.
All right, perfect. And these guys are, they're fantastic. They're over the top, and we just we like to go with very specific type podcasts. So there's nothing real, like you're not going to come there and it's not McDonald's. It's it's more of a
Wendy's.
All right, let's cut. Let's just cut.
Panera, hey. Talking class.
The Panera of the podcast world.
We look healthy, but we're not.
That's a good one.
So that's kind of kind of what we want to do. I remember choosing. I went with when I was coming out of, and this is sort of along the boutique situation. Is when I came out of Montreal, I signed with ICM, which was huge, and that's what you thought was the best idea. But after my shows were getting developed and things like this, when one of my shows went away, I was like, hey, I saw this in the breakdown. That's perfect. I could be second fiddle on this show. And they were like, nope, wow. You're a lead. That's a wrap. And I'm like, why can't I just be second on this? Where if I would have gone with a boutique, they would have gone, absolutely, go in there. And so that's what we want to do, is be able to let these folks develop and really, try to help them promote their business, because it's too hard to do it on your own now.
Yeah, my friend Jay Thomas always said once he signed with ICM, he stopped getting work because, and Jay called him and he said, "Why don't you guys aren't sending me out for anything?" They said, "We don't make phone calls. We just answer the phone when somebody calls." And that was the difference. You guys need, he needed a boutique agency, and when he switched agencies, he started working again.
Yeah.
So do you do a lot of scouting yourselves at the comics? Or they all come to you, or do you go here at the clubs? You're active in the clubs, and you see what you like, and you approach them, or percentage-wise?
We are, we're very selective. We only have 7 projects, so every single one that we take on is something we love, we believe in. It's a long-term relationship, so it's we do some scouting, but most of the people that are on our network right now are people that we have known for years, or that come to us through our circle, because there's it's kind of like a marriage, there has to be a real trust on both sides, that this investment that we're making into this relationship together, that we want to work together for a long time. Mostly through our own circle, and we have just started. The person that Scott mentioned that we just signed is the very first person we've ever approached that we met at a festival that we didn't previously know.
Yeah, well, to answer my take on that is that now we have started scouting, and I think at this point we are scouting for talent. But I think at a certain point, if you're doing things right, people find you. So that's what we're trying to put a face on this network, so that the right people will come and find us.
Well, Billy O'Connor is he doesn't have a long-term potential because he's 75, but Try to be try to be funny because this could be your audition, Scott.
Oh, yeah.
So-
Thanks a lot for the lead. I appreciate that. He'll be dead in a couple of years, so invest in this guy. This is the guy you want to put your marbles on. I did notice when I was watching your comedy, I looked at some of your comedy and do the research, of course, for the interview, and I saw you at the Tempe Improv. I used to do that club all the time, the Tempe Improv, stand up live. Do you ever do Bronson's club in Phoenix, the House of Comedy, Rick Bronson?
I don't. I actually used to work for Rick when he just had his clubs in Canada.
Montreal.
Yeah. And he also had one in, where was it? Wasn't Calgary.
Edmonton.
Edmonton,
Edmonton,
yeah. And it was in that gigantic mall they had there. But the thing is I have to work cruise ships now because I can't fill a club. I can't fly across the country to open for somebody.
Right.
So the place to go now are these cruise ships, and it used to be cruise ships were a place to go to die for comics, but and some guys do treat it that way. But if you want to make some money, you can make a good living. The thing is that you have to try and make your schedule so that you can still send out to clubs. So in your local area or whatever, that's then you can maybe get some availabilities, but without having the social media following, you really, it's hard to get into clubs.
Hey,
You know what I mean?
Scott, why don't you tell us a little about your background, how you started? You grew up in Wisconsin?
I did. I grew up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
And this better include some tales about your parents.
Oh, absolutely. So had a mom worked at Sears. Dad was a machinist for 44 years. And, very normal upbringing in Wisconsin, and I was not the normal person there. But I used to like to sing since I was 5 years old. I had my first solo in kindergarten where it was the Christmas sing, and I had to wear this piece of paper that I made where my head went in it, and it was a donkey. And I was like, I am the donkey, shaggy and brown. I carried my mother up hill and down. I carried my mother to Bethlehem town. I am the donkey, shaggy and brown. Right?
Starting show business right there.
Yep. So that started me off in getting my ass kicked on a daily basis. And so, when I graduated high school, I didn't really have any direction. I wasn't a very good student and really not that bright. So I went into being a machinist, and I just hated it. Absolutely hated it. Like, I can't tell you how much I hated it. But then I went to the comedy club with the girl that I was dating in high school, and then afterwards we dated, and we went and saw a brand new club opened up, and I saw John Mendoza, Manny Oliveira, and a guy named Dobie Maxwell. And we were sitting in there, and after Dobie went up, and then he brought up Manny Oliveira, who was hilarious. And the MC goes, "Hey, we got open mic nights here every Monday night." And my girlfriend Linda goes, "You should do this." And I go, "What?" She goes, "You should do this." And so the following Monday, I did it. I sucked for a good 3 months, but I didn't give a shit. And then they asked me to be the house MC. I said, I started to grow and everything. And then I won a competition, and then I drove 13 and a half hours down to Atlanta to audition for the Punchline comedy chain. Back then had 13 clubs. And if you worked for them, you could work anywhere. And Ron D'Annunzio and Chris DePetta and Dave Montesano. Sounds like three guys you don't want to fucking cross, right?
Yeah.
And so then they said, "Okay, I'll give you 2 weeks in each one of my clubs." And that was the start of it. That was the greatest day of my life, other than our wedding.
Oh, what about the birth of Kenna?
Yeah, I guess. But anyway, no, you don't understand. Like, people would always go, you just chased your dream. No, I didn't. I was running from a nightmare. Those are two different risks.
Yeah,
Totally.
without a doubt.
So,
Tell a little bit about your mom.
yeah. So my mom and my dad became a huge part of my act, and always were, and still are. My mom, I talk about her going to bingo. Is just like, so anyway, hon, I got to tell you something that happened. So last month I got my bill for MasterCard, you know? So I sent the money in right away. I don't mess around. And then this month they sent the next bill and they never took the money off. Well, I don't know what the hell's going on over at MasterCard. I don't know if they got a new gal, right? She said that at Christmas time. She thought like MasterCard was 50,000 employees. Becky left. She took the whole shit down. She honestly would say these things. We were there one time, and my sister goes to my mom, "Mom, you're not supposed to be eating white bread. You're a diabetic." She goes, "I don't. I toast it." Right?
She was awesome. She was a piece of work.
And my dad, you know, there was one. My dad was a really interesting dude. My dad was 6'3", handsome, could dance, could sing, was really, really intelligent. And I think that bothered my dad that I left being a machinist to become a comedian. Like what I did or what he did wasn't good enough, you know, for me, right? And I never knew until he passed away that there was a little bit of jealousy. He says, "Well, shit, you know, I wish I could have done that, but I had all you monkeys and I had to go to work, you know?"
Yeah.
And so, but that was that generation. But my dad was a huge part of my act, and all three of my sitcoms revolved around my parents. I had one where it was about me, my parents, you know, and then the Persian girl that I dated. You know, dad was a surgeon, mom was a nurse, sister sold pharmaceuticals, and her brother was a malpractice lawyer. Now you can see that juxtaposition. And then 2 airplanes flew into buildings in New York, and brown people to Americans are fucking brown people, and that wrapped that up. But my dad, one of my favorite stories about my dad is my dad and mom were bikers. They had a motorcycle belonging to a club, Goldwing Road Riders Association. So one year for Christmas, he got my dad the intercom system for the helmets, so my mom and dad could talk to each other while they're going down the road. My dad was fucking pissed. I wanted to listen to your mom bitch in my ear out of bought a car, you moron. But there was a lot of that went on in our house.
That's
I was watching a movie, an old movie in the 40s with Tyrone Power or something. He lands on a tropical island and he falls in love with the Tahitian girl or whatever, you know, and I'm watching it with my buddy. And he's trying to teach her English. And he goes, "Look at this. The guy's got the perfect setup and he's screwing it up. Now he's teaching her how to talk." He goes, "What an asshole." Yeah, I get you. Yeah, so I mean, you yourself with the comedy network, it's about other comics. It's not so much about you. It's about getting their faces out there in front of people, which is pretty remarkable. I mean, and have you saw anybody do you know, like right off the bat, this guy's an unmistakable talent, he's got to be seen, you know, like, do you get that feeling often or ever?
There's one person, well, I don't want to signal, you know.
You don't want to say his name?
There was somebody that said, she went, "This person is going to be ... And I think that's going to turn out to be true, you know. But all the people on our network that we've seen, the person that we just signed, gosh, there's, you know, because of the specificity, they just have to find that specific audience, and then they will blow up because it's like, I don't know how to explain it more than just like, if you're a watch person, you're either a Rolex person or you're a Panerai person or whatever you happen to be. Once these people find their things, people come, man. They just show up because it's you know, people like weird clubs.
Yeah, but you know, as you guys are aware, more goes into it than just talent and the intangibles that go into that. You know, how is a guy or gal going to respond to success? Are they going to become an asshole? Are they going to be a publicity nightmare? All of those things can short circuit a career. So talent is one thing, and you guys have done a great job. But you know, there's a long way to go from here.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think, you know, one of the things with us, because we love comedy so much, is that for a more sort of casual comedy fan, I think they're looking for a more polished act or product at that point. Whereas I just saw a comedian last week, and he kind of tanked. but I thought that guy is so unique, so in his own skin.
You married him.
Sense of humor. The guy that I was with was like, that guy was not funny. And I was like, oh, that guy's going to be big.
He's gonna be funny.
Because I'm looking at something different than where is he right now. I'm looking at what are the seeds of where I believe that person will be. And the amount of in his own skin and his own point of view that he was for such a young comedian was really remarkable.
Like, just think about, had you seen Mitch Hedberg his first 3 years,
Yeah.
you'd be like, this guy
Sucks.
isn't, you know? But look where he came to.
Yeah.
You know, I want to hear a story that everybody talks about a break. Here was the biggest break I ever got. There's a woman named Erin who used to book the improvs in Hollywood and, you know, the comedy club chain as well. Well, I was starting, you know, I was right there in the precipice where I was, you know, I could work the club whenever, you know, whatever, the Hollywood Improv, and people knew my name, but I just couldn't get over that top. I couldn't get the big manager. I couldn't get the big agency, whatever the hell. So Mitch Hedberg went to Montreal in '98, signed a $500,000 deal with Fox. A guy named Dave Becky, who was with 3 Yards, got that deal done. So everybody's like, who in the hell is Mitch Hedberg, right? So Erin had set up a night at the Improv, a Thursday night, where Mitch was going to come. He was going to do a set, and, you know, everybody in the industry was going to come see him. It was an introduction to the industry. So she calls me. I have no idea of this. She calls me and says, hey, what are you doing tomorrow night? I go, nothing. She goes, why don't you come up and do a set? And I go, all right. So I don't know the room's full of industry, so, which was great because I didn't have a chance to self-sabotage. So I went up and I had the best set I could have possibly had, and I came out and the bartender at the Improv goes, how'd it go, Henry? And I said, it went great. And he hands me a beer. He goes, congratulations, buddy. And I go, thanks, Eddie. I just thought it was a night. After Mitch came off, that door opened up, and it was like, here's my card, here's my card, here's my card. The next morning from 10 a.m. until 1 o'clock, I was in meetings on phones, and in the entire afternoon, I was meeting at agencies and managers. And I signed with 3 Arts at that point. They got me at Montreal, and then signed 3 consecutive network talent holding deals after that. That woman, like, changed my, it makes me, we were on Clubhouse. We were on our Clubhouse show, and I forgot who was our guest that night. But anyway, I see Erin in the crowd.
So this is like 2 years ago.
Yeah, it was at least 2 years ago. Yeah, and so I had told that story, but I told it a different way. I just said my big break was this night that Mitch Hedberg came, and Erin comes on and she goes, Scott. She goes, I put you on that showcase. I was like, what? She goes, yeah, I put you on that showcase. I go, and because I hadn't known that. I go, you're kidding me. She goes, yeah. I go, well, you changed my life. She goes, no, you did. It was just a matter of time. I just happened to do it that night.
Wow.
And so,
Wow.
But it was cool because she said that she had done it for him on purpose, that she
Yeah.
knew that he was ready and that he needed the break, and she knew that slot was incredibly valuable right in front of Mitch, and gave it to Scott.
Wow.
and
That's
I was
awesome.
the only-
That's terrific. Hey, why don't you tell us a little about All American Sex Offender, on your show that you're executive producing on Amazon Prime?
Oh yeah, great. So this is a show that was it was completely done, and we picked it up to try to give it more visibility and more life. But Chloe Lenahan is a very talented director, writer, producer, and actor, and she wrote, directed, and starred in this digital series. It's like a web series of 6 episodes that are shorts. It was funded by Chicago Media Angels as a grant. And she was involved in a film as a producer and was named Best Female Student Director by the Directors Guild of America when she was in film school at Columbia. So that's kind of the resume and the background. And of course, as you know, women are still grossly underrepresented in director seats in Hollywood, and in particular, a woman who's a writer, director, actor. And the concept
Women
of,
can do that?
yes, believe it or not. So the concept, and I'm not giving too much away because all of this is revealed in the first episode, is that this, looks like a typical, woman in her 30s, single woman in her 30s, gets fired from her job, goes out, gets pissed drunk, and gets kicked out of the bar because she's so drunk.
Something Billy knows a lot about.
I threw a lot
Yeah,
out. Might have been my joint.
She really has to go to the bathroom. And she's stumbling around looking for a place to go to the bathroom, and she can't find any place. All of a sudden, she sees some bushes. Great. She runs over, pops a squat, starts to pee, and looks at the bushes and realizes that she is next to a playground. And there are cops walking toward her and kids on the playground. Cut to, she is now a registered sex offender.
Okay.
And so this otherwise normal looking suburban woman has to go around navigating life and dating as a registered sex offender, knocking on doors, getting people to sign her clipboard, acknowledging that she is a registered sex offender in their neighborhood. And it's a lot of fun. It's a really dark romantic comedy.
Talk romantic comedy.
Something Billy's been involved with a lot, as a matter of fact.
Romantic comedy. It's a hell of a concept. I mean, it's a unique for sure. That's a
On Prime right now. It's streaming on Amazon Prime
very
or on
cool.
YouTube.
So, Scott, we've seen you on a lot of stuff, Paul Blart, etc. Catherine, do I recall you having appeared in a nationwide ad? Commercial?
Yes, Liberty Mutual.
Liberty
commercial.
Mutual, right?
Yeah, and that's one of those things, Frank. I'm sure you know for all your years in the business, you just sort of never know. I can't tell you how many times I've driven across town an hour to go into an audition where they say, "Okay, commercial audition." The car is driving past, and it's really cool, but you observe it, but you don't really respond, just a little bit. So there'll be the whole audition. Thank you. So that's your audition. And then so again, Liberty Mutual, one of those. I have no idea. It's one of 100 commercial auditions that I go to. I pop in there. Seems to go well. At least I have some lines. It can be a little bit funny. And then I ended up getting called back and booking it. And it became the most watched commercial in the U.S. in 2017. So that commercial, I mean, that changed our lives.
It also became a rental property.
and a COVID backdrop because you guys hadn't worked for the year and a half.
Yeah. I'll tell you something that happened at COVID. I really was kind of going bonkers not doing comedy. I mean, I know it was a part of me, but I didn't realize it was this big of a part of me. So when we could finally go out a little bit, I went to Walgreens. And so I go to Walgreens, and there's like 12 people in line, right? Everybody got their fucking jammies on. They got like chips and liquor. That's and whatever medications they were not supposed to take with the liquor. And I just started doing crowd work. I don't know what got it. for like, and it was funny because this woman had to go out to her car to get change because she wouldn't take. She didn't have like 15 cents. She was 15 cents short. And the lady next to her said, "I got it." She's like, "No, I will not let you do that. I have it in my." So we're just all standing there. I'm shredding people's slippers. What kind of bourbon goes with Zoloft? You know what I mean? I mean, I was ripping this place to pieces, right? So I left there, and she goes, "Where in the fuck are you?" And I said, "I just killed at Walgreens."
I had a guy on Facebook, a comic, a friend of mine. He says, "I tell you right now," he says, "I'm on gate 5, ready to get on an airplane." He says, "It's a guy who thinks he's a stand-up comic. He's doing his whole act behind me." He says, "I'm ready to shoot myself, He says, "I tell you, I had it with this guy." And of course, a comic puts underneath it, "Who books that gate?"
Well, you talk about being a comedy junkie. Scott, did you warm up the crowd for UK women's basketball?
I did. I was the hype man, ran around because Coach Mitchell the Mitchells are like our very, very, very good friends. And Coach he goes, "Hey man," we were having some cocktails and dinner. And he goes, "I was just down at this SEC event, and they had this dude that could just rile the crowd up and do the whole thing." He goes, "You think he could do that?" Well, few cocktails. So there I was, and so started warming up the room and doing the advertising, being out, doing trivia and everything. And I was like, that's the great thing about this job. You can never judge where you are supposed to be. You just try all these different avenues because you never know what you're good at or you never know what you're going to like. And it ended up being such a great experience. And Matthew's such a phenomenal person and coach. The one player, Ryan Howard was her name. She was the #1 pick in the draft last year, I believe. So he had recruited the #1 pick in the draft, and she was amazing. And I got to tell you, these women can play. All I know guys say you would get waxed if you tried to play with these women. Smashed. You would not dribble the ball, and they would take it from you like you were, had Halloween candy, and you just said, I got that. And that was it. So I learned a lot from it. It was a lot of fun.
Well, give Matthew and Jenna our best for sure.
Will do.
Derek, you have a question?
Well, I have a lot of questions. I feel like we've only scratched the surface, but I'm curious about how you guys met. Whoa, that good question.
All right. What kind of porn do you watch?
Well, let's hear about yours.
That's pretty good.
There was this woman in my acting class who was friends with Catherine. And the Comedy Magic Club in Hermosa Beach is, in my opinion, the finest club in the country. All right. And every July, they would have their anniversary, their birthday. And if it was the anniversary was 23 years, they'd have 23 comics. They'd each do like 2 minutes, whatever the deal is, 3 minutes. And so there were the anniversary shows. So this woman from my acting class brought Catherine and a few other people to the show. And she was coming out of a divorce, and I was in a dysfunctional relationship for the 3rd time with the same woman. And
Really?
so I do the show, and afterwards we go next door to Paisano's Pizza. And I see Catherine, and I'm like climbing over seats to try and sit next to her. And we talked, for like an hour at the pizza place. And I left her, and I called my buddy Mike Burton, and I go, I just met the woman I'm going to marry. And he goes, again? But we, in our situations, we obviously could not give that a shot. So 14 months later, I missed my Monday night acting class, so I had to go do a makeup class on Wednesday, and I ran into her there.
Oh.
And I got out of it. I was like a 14-year-old boy. I was like, okay. So I sat next to her in class, and then I keep trying to talk to her while the teacher's talking, and she goes, shh. Like, well, this has got to be fun. And so we went to 7-Eleven at the break.
It's a lot of romantic venues here.
Yeah, I see this.
Sopranos, the 7-Eleven.
Yeah.
Really...
So we went to 7-Eleven on the break, and I got her phone number. And the next day I called her, and I said, listen, I'm 10 years older than her. And I said, I'm in a situation where I want to have a relationship. You just came to LA a little while back. If you want to just, go hang with your friends, and maybe, we'll pick it up at another time. And she said, no, let's give this a shot. And then that was 21 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, nice
That's
story.
great.
I asked my wife is younger than me too. She's 20 years younger than me. And I said to her one day, I said, why'd you marry me anyway? She said, because you're funny. I said, I thought because I was good in bed. She goes, you see what I mean? You're hilarious.
See what I mean? See what I mean? You don't get this kind of humor from everybody.
Everybody got that kind of stuff.
This is a hidden talent at 75, just waiting to be discovered.
So 21 years you together, huh?
And it took you 21 years minus 17 years to have a baby?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. We were never going to have kids. Then
And then you had one.
at the KP. No, it's a bit of my act where I say we weren't even going to have kids. Then we went to my buddy's daughter's soccer game. There's a million of those little pricks running around, right? And my wife says, "Oh, I want one." And I go, "All right, which one?" But the truth of the matter is, we were never going to have kids, and then all of a sudden, just one night, I've been thinking, and whenever a woman says that shit,
It's over.
It's
life's about to change.
Yeah.
And I want to have a baby. And I opened a bottle of wine like quickly. And she has done so much for me in my life. Absolutely, if that's what you want, let's do it. And could not have. So we tried to have a child for about a year, and it wasn't working out. We had a lot of stress. And then we were sitting at home one night, and somebody dropped an offer in our mailbox for our house in Valley Village, which is basically Studio City. And we looked at it. We were like, where would we go, you know? And I said, how about Lexington? And we researched it for about, a half hour? And we were moving to Lexington. So once we sold the house, we had a shitty apartment in Van Nuys. And about 2 months after we sold the house, we ended up getting pregnant. And then we moved to Lexington, and it was just the best. It was the best decision we made. That was great.
Lexington's great for sure. Yeah, I mean, you say you did a half an hour research, but you had been there for like 10 years,
Yeah.
15 years for the Children's Charity Classic.
Yeah, so Scott had been here every summer for 15 years, and I had been maybe half of those times. But really, Frank, at that point, we had never discussed leaving Los Angeles. It would not crossed our minds. We're both, in entertainment, and all of a sudden, one night we had this conversation, and he said, "What about Lexington?" And I said, "Oh, okay." We just decided to go on an adventure. We said, if we don't like it, we'll move back. We love it.
The last 3 years that I was there, Jim Rocco used to take me to the airport every year in his '57 Chevy, and boy, the last 3 years. But I could never say that to her because she was really starting to ascend in her acting career. So I was like, I can't ask somebody to. But I was like, I could live here, no doubt about it. But it was sort of like whether you believe in God or the universe or whatever you want to believe, that here's a letter in your mailbox. It's time to move on,
Yeah.
And
Well, when Catherine started coming with you, all of the talk was, how the hell did Scott get her?
they don't get up.
Billy, you got something to say about that?
Who, me? No. I'm a listen, man. I don't know.
Who are you going to satisfy with that?
Who are you going to satisfy with that? I don't know. So that's great, man. I mean, it's great what you're doing. I mean, this channel the energy. You're really creating opportunities for not just comics, for yourself as well. I mean, you're in Kentucky, which is obviously not the media capital of the world, and you're branching out all over.
But you've got offices in Santa Monica with about 13 to 15 people working for you, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so company is based in Santa Monica, and prior to the pandemic, we had an apartment there, and we would go back and forth as needed. But after the shutdown, people are totally used to meeting by Zoom. People do not bat an eyelash now about meeting with us over Zoom, so we don't have to go back much. We go if we have to, but now we get to just be here in beautiful Lexington, Kentucky, and still be in entertainment. It's great.
Yeah, well, and now we have just why don't you talk about the show?
Oh yeah, we're really excited. We can't say too much about it, but we are in pre-production on an unscripted docu-series. It's 10 episodes, kind of in the vein of Drunk History, and
except with
no,
nope,
can't say anything
nope,
else to that. We'll just leave that one aside. It's in the vein of Drunk History, and we're just waiting for everything to get wrapped up with the strikes, which we hope will happen soon. And we've got our set all built on the Sunset Gower lot, and we're really excited about it.
Well,
With production.
no one knows Drunk History better than Billy O'Connor. So
I was in New York. I was in New York recently, and I was looking for a play to see because my wife had never been to a play, so I was looking. And one of the things was Drunk Shakespeare, and the lead underneath it was, it's Shakespeare and all the actors are drunk. What more do you need? Yeah, not much more. That's pretty good. Drunk Shakespeare, so Drunk History. I could go for that.
Yeah, it's great.
yeah.
Well, Billy, you have any final questions?
Not really. I just think it's wonderful what you're doing. I think it's great to give a window or an opportunity for so many comics out there. Like you said, there's so much talent out there, and guys just don't know how to let people know they're funny. It's a whole different talent. It's like getting elected president and actually doing the job. It's one thing to get elected. It's another thing to know how to do the goddamn job. So you can be funny, but how many funny guys,
And a thing I think also is great that you guys are doing is you're segueing into another portion of your career, the second half of your career, and you're segueing into a portion that can be enduring, something that you can do for 20 or 30 years, and something that Catherine can carry on after Scott is long gone. Because you are so much older than her.
Comedy is the only thing that's kept me alive. I believe that 100%. But I can tell you the other thing that it does, Frank. At a certain point, when you're younger, you kind of judge, that guy's a hack, or you judge us. I really am re-energized. Like when we had a baby, it made me 10, 15 years younger because I would watch through her eyes and just have so much fun with her. But watching the young comedians, I feel like I am living through them in the best possible way. And so I feel like last night we went and saw this, and this kid who was the MC, dude, he was stiff as a fucking board. He's like, yeah, so, and I remember being that terrified, And so this is really fun, and it's the best to be with somebody that is doing all the work.
And who loves you.
But it was when you had made a very telling comment when we first started the interview. You said the first time you got up on stage, you sucked, which everybody does, and you had to do your 3 minutes, and you were terrible. But you didn't give a shit that you were terrible, which is a good thing. I mean, because being afraid to fail is the worst thing you can have on stage. Because you don't create anything new. You're afraid to fail, and you want that.
The audience can smell desperation
Without a doubt.
And go ahead, Scott.
No, it's interesting because ignorance is bliss. And, I was talking with Matthew last night when he was watching. I want Matthew to try stand-up so bad. He's so funny.
Well, he is a ham.
Oh, my gosh. There's nothing Matthew can't do. I'm honestly. Maybe ballet is out of the question. But
he was the women's basketball coach at the University of Kentucky. And every year he used to come out as Elvis or Michael Jackson in front of 15, 20,000 people at Rupp Arena.
And they loved it.
They fucking loved it.
Oh man.
They fucking loved it. Take a look at when you get a chance, Billy or Derek, Matthew Mitchell at UK basketball opening night. It's fantastic.
Yeah, he also has a wonderful new book out called Winning Tools about all of his leadership lessons and coaching.
Oh. And you can buy it. You can buy it in audio, and you'll hear me narrate it. But I wanted to say one thing that these young comedians drive 3 hours to do 7 minutes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, a normal human being goes, what? But you're not normal when you're in that frame of mind. You're like, I don't care. I remember when, after I signed my first deal with ABC and I bought my car and I drove across the country and I got to Milwaukee, and my one brother-in-law, after we're having a picnic or whatever, Milwaukee people getting drunk. And he goes, what made you think you could do this? And I said, well, I just never thought I could, I just never saw it that way. I didn't care. I really didn't care. I didn't have a fucking plan. My plan was make enough money to put gas in my car, go to McDonald's in the drive-thru, lie and tell them that they just jacked up my order and I want my food right, and then go do comedy at the next place and try to find a place to stay the Monday night you don't have a gig. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Those were the best years.
You put it in perfect context. You weren't chasing a dream. You were running from a nightmare. Your future looks so bright. I couldn't be happier to know you. Please say hello to my friends in Kentucky, Doug Flynn and Jim Richardson and Stacy Richardson and Matthew and Jenna. And I'll catch up to you soon.
Please.
Thank you, Frank. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, please come on out and hang with us for, a few days at least. We'll go play some golf and drink some wine and just the tournament being gone now is really, it's just so bad. I look forward to seeing everybody. So let's just do it on an individual basis. Y'all got to come out and have some fun. You would.
Say hi to Karen. I love that
Yes.
woman.
We'll do it for sure. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for
Thank-
coming
Bye-bye.
on, Scott. Catherine, pleasure to meet you.
Bye.
Carry on. Great
So,
stuff.
Another good one, huh?
Yeah, great stuff. Really good. Good people. Good people.
So what's next?
Oh,
I think we've chopped it up enough for 1 week. We have Joe West, we had Scott and Catherine. Why don't we call it a day and say see you next week?
see you next week to our
To
throngs, to the throngs.
Derek, see you next week.
Oh, thank you guys. It's a pleasure to see you this week and next week.
Look at that voice. The voice.
It's unbelievable.
The voice
isn't it?
that launched 1,000
We're
ships.
so fortunate. See you, folks.
Next week's guest, actor, Beverly Hills 90210, Eddie and the Cruisers, Matthew Lawrence returns.